This past weekend, we had one of the greatest achievements in American cycling, and it will probably make no headlines whatsoever. We have a new world record for a 24-hour non-drafting solo event, and it's done by a guy on Strava. His name is Matthew Lefthand on Strava, but I believe his name is Matthew Johnson. I do not know this athlete, but I did get his file, and I wanted to break it down. We had a great event. It's held every year in February. Down in Florida, the Sebring 24-hour challenge, and it's a great first event of the year. It's warm, the weather is fantastic, and so it's a great first event of the season. I had one athlete that he went down to rock this out. He did a great job. He's new to the 24-hour event, and so it's always a learning process. There can be a lot of failure of things to learn before you can rock out your first 24-hour event and just, nail it, rock it out, hit all of your goals. But clearly, this particular athlete, Matthew Lefthand, just rocked it out. And I want to go through kind of this list of things that you need to do. If you want to rock out a 24-hour event, you got to go through these things. And we're going to go through these things, but let's look at the ride first. So there's Matthew right there. He's obviously got a TT bike. It is set up. He's carrying a lot of water, a lot of nutrition on the bike, right? It means he does not want to stop. Key in these events is, slow miles are better than no miles. You have to keep going. You have to stay on the bike. And he did 576 miles for this event, which is an official World Ultra Cycling Association American 24-hour record. So this is just an absolutely amazing effort. Now, if we look at his power, so this is the entire ride. This is his power. He had an average power of 233 watts for this entire ride. I do not know this athlete's weight, so that's wrong, or could be right, could be wrong. I have no idea. But he had an average speed of almost 24 hours going through this whole time. And it was a fairly flat course, so his normalized power looks very much like his average power. But you can see that he is in it to win it, right? These little black lines right here is basically his stops, just the briefest of stop, a bigger stop right here. But we do see that his power goes down. Now, I have no comments from this athlete. I have no anything. I'm not in communication with this athlete, so I do not know his strategy for this event. Every event's going to have a strategy. Was he in it just to win it, or was he in it to go for a world record? Now, doing a little exploration of this athlete, he wants World Ultra Cycling Association titles. I mean, he's going after them, and that's his goal. He talks about it. That's what he wants. He got one at a Hoodoo last year. So yeah, he wants titles. So I'm not sure what he's doing. So it's different pacing strategies are different for different events. So if you just want to win the race, then it's kind of a race. Then it's your goal to beat the other people. So you might start out technically too hard to get out in front. However you want to race the event. If you were going to do the 24-hour and you were just purely going for distance, then that's a different event pacing strategy. But it worked. I mean, it's hard to complain with the world title. It's hard to find any faults, right? But he had a great cadence. He does high force, low cadence throughout his thing. And so his average cadence for the entire ride was 64. That first 5-hour period, I looked at that. So he is going harder and faster in that first 5 hours. That was his fastest block, that first 5 hours. And so he's rocking it out at about 249 watts for that first hour. And his cadence was 74. So he is using a low cadence for these things. The entire cadence was 64. 169. So he's a high force, low cadence guy. Everybody is going to be different. It's a very individualistic thing. For him, he is super dialed in. He knows his cadence. He knows all this great stuff. Now, when, going through this list, right, what are the keys to his achievement? He has an FTP of about 430, 440, somewhere in that range. That enables him to cruise at that upper zone 1, lower zone 2 that we're looking for that 24 hours at 230 watts, right? So, I work with athletes and, that do not have that kind of, very few people have that massive amount of FTP. It's rare. I have juniors that are at that level, but they're, doing the crits, they're doing the omniums, they're doing the road races, they're doing the TTs on the junior level, on the national scale, and they will have massive FTPs, 400, 420, etc. But in the ultra endurance cycling world, especially here in America, those are rarer to see those FTPs over 400. I have, so for instance, I have one athlete who came to me as a coached athlete, has been doing ultra events for years. He's at 200. I have another athlete that is at 340, but to find someone that is that massive is really rare. But FTP is crucial to all of this. Like, you have to have an FTP. You have to do dedicated FTP work to get that done. And so, like, the base season is a great time to get those base miles in, to do that FTP work, to do those, zone 2, zone 3, and do some of that zone 4 efforts to really push that FTP up. And when I get a new ultra athlete, like, that's one of the things that is the hardest for me to convince them, is that we need to do dedicated FTP work, which means that we're just not worried about volume, massive volume, 20-hour weeks, 30-hour weeks. Let's bring that down to 12-hour weeks and really get that FTP up. And then as we get closer to your event, we can really start extending that out, which will give you, if you're cruising around 24 hours at 160 watts versus 200 watts, that's a huge difference. That's a lot of miles. And this Matthew gentleman with an FTP of around 440, 430, that's a massive aerobic engine, which means that he's just able to cruise, right? So, for instance, today, Pogacar, right, his cruising time for one of these 24-hour events would be like 280 watts, 300 watts, okay? So high FTP is absolutely crucial. You have to do the work, and you really have to focus on that FTP for your best ultra event. If you're in it to win it, everybody does these events for their own reasons, but if you're in it for PRs, if you're in it to win these events, you have to have the high FTP. The other thing, stay on the bike. 24-hour period, we've got to stay on the bike. There was the guy who won Psycho. He was great. He even had a handoffs, and so he's doing laps around this, and he won Psycho, the North American championship, and he did like 510 miles, I believe, on the Psycho route. And, I got pictures. He's doing handoffs, with his girlfriend is standing there. She's holding out the bag, and he's just flying by, like 50 yards this way. He's dumping all of his stuff that she would go then pick up, dumping all of his stuff, and then he would ride by and grab the stuff. And so the goal is that, slow miles are better than no miles. You have to stay on that bike, and you have to train yourself to stay on that bike. And so he had the data that I looked at, it looks like he was only a total of 11 minutes of stopping time. 11 minutes of stopping time in that 24-hour period. That's amazing. But, kind of like the first big goal, like when I work with new athletes in the 24-hour event, right? I want to get them to the point where they're just doing 2 hours of stopping time, then 1 hour of stopping time, and then whatever they can do. But 11 minutes of stopping time is absolutely fantastic. Pacing, we saw from his power chart that he really kept it tight. He paced that thing. And so, on his screen for his Garmin, he probably, has a screen for 3-second watts and then average lap watts. So he knows where he's at, right? I don't think that he would ride this by speed necessarily. He might, but from what it looks like in terms of his watts, he was incredibly disciplined, right? I mean, the course was rollers. It was up and down. You're going faster on certain sections and slower on other sections. But in terms of his watts, his pacing was absolutely incredible. He does start out, right? So, for those who know me, I'm big on negative splits. And if he wants his best time, I think that he could find some gains by slowing it down at the beginning and putting that extra effort towards the end. I think he could have grabbed a few more miles on this. His variability index, this goes right along with pacing in that he rocked it out. So variability index is basically a ratio between your normalized power and your actual average watts, your actual power. Basically think of variability, right? So, right, if you're the type of rider who has the style where you're going hard and then you're just going easy, you're going hard, you're a really surgy rider. When it comes to energy metabolism, this is incredibly inefficient, right? When you do these things, you just want to put it on cruise control and you just want to keep those watts as steady as possible. So when I looked at his VI, he had a perfect VI of 1.0. Which basically means that ratio between normalized power and his average power was actually the same, is that he is not a surgy rider. He is maximizing his energy metabolism. And so that is crucial. And that's a skill. Okay. And so when I work with new athletes, they come to me, they want to do these ultra events or any event really. I work with that skill, steady state riding. This is a 24-hour TT event, okay? And it's smoothness, it's energy maximization, okay? So that's crucial. So his variability index was off the roof. Aero, we could see he was absolutely aero. He had his tech dialed in, okay? The faster you want to go, you have to be aero. I work with athletes in wind tunnels. Sometimes when they get to that level, I don't do it right when they come to me, but after a while and we've been through these 10 things, then get in the wind tunnel. Looks like he had a wax chain and an oversized cog on the bottom. His rear cog, his rear derailleur, looked like he had an oversized cog. So he was all in it. He has his tech super dialed in. He would have had his tires dialed in. But he was super aero and looked just great. Nutrition, obviously, if you want to do 24 hours and you want the time, you have to have your nutrition dialed in. And this is one of those things that it's super hard to practice because you really need a 24-hour event to practice these things. If you're just doing a 15-hour ride is not a 24-hour ride. The nutrition that you can get away with in 15 hours might not be the nutrition that you need for 24 hours. And so he has his nutrition dialed in, his carbs, his ratio between solid foods and liquid foods, right? All that great stuff, his electrolytes. So it looked like, obviously if you want the world record, you really have to have your nutrition dialed in. And then mental fortitude. So obviously, that's one of the biggest things. You're riding through the night, you're riding for 24 hours. That mental fortitude is crucial. And we try to develop this mental fortitude and we try to develop all these these things in your training. But, what we saw with Matthew for this past weekend was fantastic. So, Matthew, great job on that. All right. Hey, Coach Lee here. Like and subscribe. Visit my website, www.sanstead.com. If you're interested in rocking out some 24-hour events or race across the West, race across the East, or RAM, or any other ultra cycling event, look me up. Would love to talk to you and work with you. Thanks, everybody.